Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Tuesday, the 16th of June 2020. And this is a very late video for us, producing it at 22:30 hours GMT plus 1. Now yesterday we expressed in our video, which was entitled, "When is gold really going to take off?" the various reasons why gold has not risen dramatically and what it would take within the economy and outside of it to do so. Now today we've seen equities rise, gold and silver really hardly move, and the Fed promise yet again to maintain enough stimulus, quote, to do whatever it takes, unquote, to revive what is clearly an ailing, but showing signs of some recovery, US economy. Now that said, and as we predicted some months ago, President Trump is also likely to launch a $1 trillion infrastructure plan, which, less than 10 days ago, we were told was on the cards and almost imminently to be announced, and then it was delayed. But it is literally just around the corner. So, to put all of this into context, we're going to read back-to-back two articles, one published by Bloomberg and the other by Reuters, both of which were updated within the last few hours. Bloomberg Article, dated 16th of June 2020, 9:06 p.m. GMT plus 1. Headline, Stocks jump most in week amid US growth optimism. Stocks rose for a third day as optimism over a recovering US economy overrode concerns that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. Treasury yields rose and the dollar strengthened. The S&P 500 climbed 1.9%, with energy, healthcare and materials leading all 11 industry sectors higher in the biggest gain in more than a week. The benchmark index initially surged after data showed US retail sales jumped by the most on record. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said the US economy may be bottoming out during his semi-annual policy report to Congress. Right now, there's more cross-currents than I can ever remember, said John Porter, Chief Investment Officer of Equities at Mellon Investments. The weight of where investors are focusing day to day really swings wildly, from fears of the second wave, concerns about escalating tensions with China, complete vacuum of visibility on earnings. Stocks briefly paired gains after Florida reported that new cases rose to the highest level since the pandemic began, and Texas saw hospitalizations surge. Elsewhere, Beijing shut its schools on concerns about new infections. It shows you that the market is still extremely reactive in both directions to any virus-related news, especially on the upside when it's good news, said Liz Ann Saunders, Chief Investment Strategist at Charles Schwab & Co. Government stimulus has been a key feature of the global equities rally, despite soaring unemployment and signs that a second wave of the virus has started to emerge. Now there are signs that more economic support is on the way. The Trump administration is preparing a nearly $1 trillion infrastructure proposal as part of its push to spur the world's largest economy back to life, according to people familiar with the plan. On top of that, the Fed will start buying individual corporate bonds. The Fed is delivering on its promise to do whatever it takes, said Todd Yablonsky, Chief Investment Officer at Principal Portfolio Strategies. They can't, however, offset the volatility that comes with risk assets as the number of cases pick up. Elsewhere, oil climbed above $38 a barrel in New York amid signs of improving demand and declining production. There are some key events coming up. Policy decisions from the Bank of England and the Swiss National Bank are due later this week. The New York Stock Exchange may allow a limited number of market makers to return to its historic trading floor on Wednesday. Reuters article dated June 16th, 2020. Updated at 2200 hours. Green shoots welcome, but recovery still a long road. Fed's Powell says. A full US economic recovery will not occur until the American people are sure that the novel coronavirus epidemic has been brought under control, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said on Tuesday, as he began the first of 2 days of hearings before US lawmakers. While recent signs of improvement, including a surprise gain in employment and a record rise in retail sales last month, are encouraging, the damage inflicted by forced economic shutdowns to curb the spread of the virus has left a very deep hole to fill, especially on the employment front, Powell said. Something like close to 25 million people have been displaced in the workforce, either partially or through unemployment, and so we have a long road ahead of us to get those people back to work, Powell told the Senate Banking Committee. Later in the day, Fed Vice Chair Richard Clarida made clear that it's not just the labour market the Fed is worried about. Inflation expectations, already low at the start of the recession, are at risk of falling below the Fed's 2% inflation goal, Clarida said in remarks prepared for delivery to the Foreign Policy Association in New York. I will place a high priority on advocating policies that will be directed at achieving not only maximum employment, but also well-anchored inflation expectations. Falling inflation can drag on economic growth and make it harder for the central bank to stimulate the borrowing and spending that could pave the way for more hiring. Both men largely echoed the cautionary tone Powell struck last week at the conclusion of the Fed's latest 2-day policy meeting, mapping out how the United States faces an uncertain, uneven, and prolonged economic recovery from the health crisis. The Fed kept interest rates unchanged near zero and made clear it plans years of extraordinary stimulus as the nation grapples with reopening its economy amid state and local surges in cases and with no vaccine in sight. The central bank currently forecasts the economy shrinking 6.5% in 2020, and Powell admitted on Tuesday that his colleagues largely did not assume a significant second wave of infections in making that assessment. Millions of people have become unemployed as a result of the pandemic, which has killed more than 116,000 people in the United States, with minority communities among those hardest hit on both fronts. Powell was repeatedly asked how the Fed could mitigate the impacts of such racial inequality. If not contained and reversed, the downturn could further widen gaps in economic well-being that the long expansion had made some progress in closing, said Powell, adding the best way the central bank could help was by returning US unemployment to its pre-coronavirus lows. But he cautioned there would be no quick fix to healing the economy, particularly for low-wage workers in service sector industries that have been hardest hit. He repeated that the Fed will use its full range of tools to help the economy recover, and renewed calls for lawmakers to provide more fiscal support, which he called a critical difference in limiting long-lasting damage. He frequently reminded lawmakers that the Fed could lend but not spend, unlike Congress. The Fed warned in its semi-annual report to lawmakers on Friday that it expects households and businesses to suffer persistent fragilities. There's a reasonable probability that more will be needed both from you and from the Fed, Powell told lawmakers. There will be a significant number of people that don't go back to work. Those people are going to need help going forward to get back to work. Powell will appear before the U.S. House of Representatives Financial Services Committee on Wednesday at 12 p.m. EDT 600 GMT for a second day of congressional testimony. Congress has so far allocated nearly $3 trillion in financial relief, including direct payments to households and a forgivable loan scheme for small businesses, while the Fed has implemented numerous programs to pump trillions of dollars of credit into the economy. Now, elsewhere in the hearing, Powell was pressed on the efficacy of its various crisis-driven programs designed to improve the flow of credit to businesses across the country, including whether its long-awaited Main Street lending program, launched on Monday, will reach a broad enough range of firms. I'm really genuinely concerned that we may see the Main Street lending program not have a material impact on helping small and medium-sized businesses. To me, it appears there is little in the program to incentivize banks to originate these loans. Senator Jerry Moran, a Republican, said of the program, which will offer up to $600 billion in loans to US businesses with up to 15,000 employees or with revenues up to $5 billion. We really had no choice but to go through the banking system to meet those borrowers, Powell responded. We feel there's substantial interest on the part of bankers for this. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. So let's just take a final look at the economic figures. The Dow Jones is up 526 points, or 2%. The S&P 500 is up 58 points, or 1.9%. And the Nasdaq is up 169 points, or 1.75%. UK and European stocks closed broadly up around 3%. Now, as we predicted in our weekly update last Saturday, the dollar index is up and now above 97, standing at 97.02. Gold stands at $1,727, some $4 lower than Monday's opening, and silver stands at $17.48, just 3 cents lower than Monday's opening. As we heard in the articles, retail sales came in strongly for May and actually showed a positive 17.7%, compared with a negative minus 14.7% for April. Industrial production was also positive for May at plus 1.4%, compared with April's minus 12.5%. So, for now, the economy appears to be on some sort of road to recovery. That said, of course, the market is fickle and investors are nervous. We shall be more interested in Thursday's data, but meanwhile are keeping a close eye on what other central banks and other governments are announcing this week. So what do you make of all this? Is the US economy still going to improve? Or will a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic put paid to all that? Do share your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell sign so that you're notified of our videos as and when they are published. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.